Thank you so much for joining us at Church Experience Online. If you would like to find out more about our church, learn how to get connected to our community, or help fuel the movement by giving, just click on the link to our website in the description below.
So, will you sink or will you survive the next storm that you find yourself in, or maybe in the storm that you find yourself in right now? Will you sink or will you swim? It's a really important question, and how do we overcome storms? That's what I titled the message today, Overcoming Storms. Well, we're going to begin today by looking at an actual storm that took place in the Bible, a storm that Jesus and his closest companions found themselves in together, and how they overcame that specific storm. So that's where we're going to go in Matthew chapter 8. We're going to read up on Jesus and his close followers, his close friends, the disciples, in a boat together. Now, I was thinking back onto one of my first experiences in a boat, and there's always have been good experiences for me. We were newly married, Jennifer and I. We got married at 22 years old. She grew up in San Diego, and that's where we were married, and so she'd always dreamed about going to Hawaii for our honeymoon, and so we flew to Hawaii. We went there for our honeymoon, and some of our friends told us we had to check out North Shore Shark Adventures, and this is a touring company that allows you the chance to go in the water with sharks, and you're in a cage and all that, and so we signed up, and we went out on this boat, and Jennifer had told me the whole time we'd been dating for a few years that she had motion sickness. Now, I did not grow up with motion sickness, nor did anyone in my family grow up with motion sickness, so I just thought, honestly, I wasn't super compassionate, so I just thought it was one of these things we could try a little harder, you know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, just suck it off, you'll be fine. Motion sickness, really? Come on, is that a thing? And so we get out on this boat, we're a couple of miles out into the water, and she's telling me she's not feeling great, and so I just was not a good, compassionate husband at this point, and so I just it'll be okay, come on, a little pep talk, that'll work. And so we go out there, and they start throwing meat out into the water. All right, so they literally chumming the water, there's blood in the water, and the sharks start circling the boat. I mean, there are sharks everywhere. You see the fins and the tails flapping out of the water. I mean, there are a lot of sharks. Then they put this cage out in the water. And we get in the cage, I mean, there's some significant gaps in the bars in the cage. This is not like you're safely enclosed. This is like they could get in if they wanted to kind of thing. And so we're in there, and we're underwater, and we're taking pictures with an underwater camera and feeding the sharks, and, it was just crazy. And the whole thing was this just amazing experience. Everything was so good, but like all this time, I didn't know the whole motion sickness thing was really having an impact on her. And all of a sudden, as we're feeding the sharks, I realized that there's more food in the water than what we brought. And she let it go, and man, I felt so bad. And that's when I really realized, okay, so she really has motion sickness. I need to be more compassionate. It's legit. And so I'm sorry, honey, that I didn't catch on before that. I was 22. I'm going to blame it on that. But in this storm that Jesus and his close friends find himself in, somebody had to be motion sick, right? I mean, because the waves are just blowing up against the side of the boat. Water's everywhere. It's crazy. Let's pick up the story. It's in Matthew chapter 8. We're going to begin in verse 24. Matthew chapter 8, verse 24. It says, suddenly a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the top of the boat, but Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and they woke him, saying, Lord, save us, we're going to drown. He replied, you of little faith, why are you so afraid? Then he got up and he rebuked the wind and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and they asked, what kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. So they're in the boat, and this huge storm comes up. Jesus is sleeping. I mean, he's relaxing. I mean, this is a man who sleeps good. I mean, he's a solid sleeper, and he's sleeping through the storm. And the disciples finally get to the point where like, we're gonna die. What do we get? We pull out the trump card, Jesus. We've seen him do amazing miracles. Like maybe he can help us out here. So they go and they wake him up out of panic. And he comes up on the deck of the boat and he rebukes the wind and the waves. He tells it to be calm, and the storm obeys him. Like through his words, the storm becomes completely calm. Like these waves, it said, were crashing up against the side of the boat. And then now it's calm. That's a supernatural, incredible miracle. And Jesus does this right in front of them. And then he says to them this question that I want to ask all of us today. It's the first blank there in your notes. If you're taking notes in your handout, is the question is, why am I so afraid? It's a good question, right? You know, when the storms hit your life, maybe you're in one now, when they come, which they will, why are you so afraid? What is causing your fear? He calls them people of little faith. He says, why are you so afraid? You know, fear causes us to stare at the storm. And I think sometimes it's the fear, it's the worry, it's the anticipation of what could happen. It's the fear, I believe, that's actually sometimes worse than the actual storm, right? I mean, sometimes I have little kids, and my youngest is 2, and her personality is so fun, and she likes to laugh. I love hearing her laugh. And when I tickle her, it's like the best because she's just got this just big, great laugh. I love it. But sometimes now, like, because she knows that daddy will come and will like get in to tickle her, sometimes now I just have to point at her. You know what I'm saying? I just point at her and she starts to laugh. You know what I'm talking about? You've done this to little kids before, or maybe your parents did it to you. You know, you just point and then she just starts laughing. I don't even have to touch her anymore. Like the anticipation of what's to come causes her to laugh. And you know what? You probably react more than you realize it internally when you see the storms building and brewing. And it's the worry, it's the panic, it's the stress. Sometimes that's what sinks the ship in the storm. It's not always the actual storm. Sometimes it's our lack of faith that creates a challenge in our lives. Faith helps us get our eyes off of the storm and onto our Savior. See, faith is kind of like the antidote to fear. And Jesus tells them that they have little faith, and he's saying you need to have greater faith in the storm. And whatever storm you're in, maybe the reason why it's so bad is because you've lost faith that your Savior is stronger than the storm, right? Because, I mean, he calmed the storm. He stepped out into the storm, and he said, listen, be calm. And the waves stopped, and it was calm. Jesus has power for you in whatever storm you're going through. You may have lost your job. You may have a family crisis going on. Your marriage may be falling apart, or that relationship. You got some things in the future, financially, relationally, your career, whatever it is, and you have no idea how it's going to come together. Don't lose faith. Don't lose faith that God's best is yet to come for you. That'll sink your ship when you lose faith. So will you sink or will you survive? Some of it depends on where you look. You know, I think that we sometimes look to fear instead of faith, and it prolongs the storm. You know, some storms in our life, they seem to happen over and over again. You know what I'm talking about? Like there's some storms that are just like a one-time event. It happens. There's this huge tragedy, and that's it. But then sometimes there's these little storms, and not always little, but the ones that reoccur. They just happen over and over again. My mother and father-in-law came down this last week from up north to visit, and he's a huge handyman, and so whenever he comes, he loves to have a project. So we did some projects around the house, and we were at Home Depot renting something from the tool department. And we were in the tool department and waiting in line, and then I get up and talk to the employee, and while we're waiting and we're having a conversation, he tells me a story about earlier that week about a woman that was in there renting something from the tool department, and she was waiting for her turn, and while she was waiting, she was on the cell phone. And so she's on the phone waiting for her turn, so she starts pacing. And so she's pacing in and out of the tool department that's right there at Home Depot, and she's just kind of going in and out of this little entrance. Well, at Home Depot, whenever you walk into the tool department, this little bell, like a doorbell kind of thing, goes off. And so she's walking back and forth and like, ding, you know, it's like ding, you know, just go over and over again. And everyone's like driving them crazy. She's totally oblivious. I mean, she hears it in the background. He's telling me like she like would look up, but she had no clue that like she was the one that kept causing it. And she just kept pacing back and forth. And other customers, you know, they're like, get a clue, lady, like it's you. Like you're the one causing the problem. I wonder how many of us, like we keep finding ourselves in reoccurring storms. Not all of them are our fault, as we're gonna look at today, but sometimes they are. Or sometimes they're a result of the situations we place ourselves in or with the people that we place ourselves next to. And we keep reoccurring, these storms keep reoccurring because over and over again, we put ourselves in that same bad situation. And we get the same bad consequence that happens and the same storm that builds. You know, sometimes to keep things from reoccurring, the change has to happen inside of us to keep the storm from happening again. You know, I think we prolong the storms in our lives. We at least make them longer because of some of the actions. And I just wrote down 4 things. It's not in your notes. Maybe this will help somebody, though. I think that there's some things that might keep the storms from being prolonged in your life. One is maybe it's being prolonged because you have not yet made the definite D-Day decision, the all-in commitment with a plan and with accountability to make a change. So maybe there's some kind of an addiction or some problem or thing that keeps happening in your life, and it's like you haven't yet fully decided, all in, made the commitment, made a plan, and got accountability to see yourself through it. It's just a desire. 2, maybe there's a focus on the pain in your life instead of progress. And so you're sitting around dwelling on the pain instead of continuing to move along. You know, I think sometimes we sit down in the storm because we're overwhelmed by it. And when you sit down in a storm, you prolong it. You have to keep moving and focus on what's next. Do it now. 3, I wonder if sometimes we see ourselves as victims of the storm. You know people like this, right? I mean, it's like the victim mentality, which can happen to any of us, but it just overwhelms them. And then all of a sudden, it's that their world is all about like they are the victim of the storm. And everyone would agree it's a bad storm, but they've allowed the victim mentality to overwhelm them. And so their storm gets longer and it gets bigger and it gets worse because they become a victim. Or 4, maybe, I wonder if this will help someone, is that I think we make them worse by overreacting and losing faith. And the disciples, they struggled with the storm. They struggled with this storm. Literally a physical storm. They struggled with it because they lost faith. And what I want to do is I want to look at one more story today that we're going to look at quite a few parts of this. I think it'll be helpful. In Acts chapter 4, where they matured. They did better. This next storm that they faced, they actually handled much more maturely. Now, the first storm happened when Jesus was with them. They're being mentored by him. They're learning. They're growing. The second storm happens after Jesus' death and after his resurrection. So he's no longer physically with them, and they're going out and doing exactly what he said. They're going out and to share the message with the world, making an impact and talking about Jesus. And in Acts chapter 4, a different kind of storm builds in their life. And I think there's so much that we can learn from this. Acts chapter 4, verse 1. It says, the priests and the captain of the temple guard and the Sadducees, they came up to Peter and John while they were speaking to the people. They were greatly disturbed because the apostles were teaching the people, proclaiming in Jesus the resurrection of the dead. They seized Peter and John. So they're out doing good things. They're trying to help people. They're talking about Jesus. Obviously in a culture that's not very pro-Jesus, they just executed him. And so they seized Peter and John. And because it was evening, they put them in jail until the next day. No trial, no judge and jury, no ticket, like straight to jail for doing good. They put them in jail until the next day. But many who heard the message believed, so the number of men who believed grew to about 5,000. So the early church is growing, good things are happening, they're out doing good things. But in the face of that, they fight adversity. A storm builds in their life. And here's what I want to say. Sometimes bad storms come when you're making good choices. You need to know that sometimes bad storms come even when you're making good choices. Storms don't only hit when we're making bad choices. And everybody faces storms. That's not unique to you. We all face them. That's a good thing because we can understand each other. You don't understand maybe the storm the person next to you is going through exactly, but you understand what storms are like because we all face them. In your notes, storms don't show favoritism. They don't show favoritism. So avoid blaming others or the situation. Avoid the self-defeating thoughts or avoid the isolation that can occur and the discouraging depression and all that. Avoid the running from God and blaming God. I mean, storms happen. You need to know that. They're going to happen in your life. It might be happening right now. That part is normal. Jesus told us that we're going to have storms in this world. He said you're going to have problems. They don't show favoritism. Jennifer and I were packed for a weekend getaway. 5 years into our marriage, we were packed. We were living out west, about 5-6 hours from Denver, Colorado. The suitcases were in the car. We were so excited to go to Denver for the weekend. Just a couple day getaway, but we hadn't had any kids yet. She was pregnant with our first. We're 5 years into this adventure, so we're ready to go do something fun and fresh and have some fun, get out of town, and we're just so excited about this trip. Well, we had one last stop before the trip, and that was to go into the doctor and, the OBGYN doctor, and they check her out, make sure everything's good with the baby and the heartbeat and all that stuff. And so we go in and, okay, heartbeat's good, ultrasound, everything's good. And the doctor wants to see you before you guys take off. Okay, cool. We're hanging out in the room, and she comes in, she's like, that's some bad news for you. We've been telling her we're excited about this trip. She goes, you're not going to Denver. I'm like, what? You don't want us to go to Denver? You got something against Denver? You don't like the Broncos? Like, what's going on? It's like, no, she goes, you're not going to Denver because Jennifer's body at 24 weeks was way early, is ready to have this baby. And so that, you're, for the next few months, if you make it that long, it's you're on strict lay down bed rest, Jennifer. So you're not going anywhere other than to bed. We're like, wait, can you say, look at your, check her name on the record. All right, you're talking about us? It's yeah, you guys are on bed. It's crazy. And so we cancel our trip, we go home and set a place up for her, and thankfully she didn't have to be in the hospital that whole time, but she couldn't get out of bed. So I think she coordinated this with a doctor to get me to feed her and all that stuff and bring her meals. It's husband training, 101. It worked, but man, God, he got us through that storm. And thankfully, Jalen was born and he was healthy. In fact, I think it was we had tons of people, hundreds of people praying for her and for the baby. And I think so much so that she actually went over her due date. So the doctor thought she was gonna be born, their son was gonna be born at 24 or later, and went to 41 weeks or something crazy. After our third pregnancy, we have 4 kids. After our third, we went into the doctor, and the doctor did the whole test that we had done 3 other times, and they hooked her up and all that stuff to hear the heartbeat. And we were into the pregnancy, and we're excited, our 4th and final kid and all that. And it was kind of cool because all of our kids had just worked out. Their birthdays June, May, June. And then this one was planned, it was gonna be born right around, I think it was June or July, right there. We're okay, the 4th one, they're all 2 years apart, kind of a cool thing. And it was just, and the doctor's I'm so sorry to tell you this, but there's no heartbeat. You've lost this. It's a miscarriage. And that we'd had 3 healthy pregnancies. We knew that could happen. It happens to a ton of people more than you realize, but but we didn't expect it to happen to us. We'd had 3 healthy ones, and all of a sudden, there's a miscarriage. And we're just leave there, some of you have been through that, and you leave, and what do? You just lost something that you're excited about, and it's deep, and it hurts, and you're man, okay, so change of plans. Storm, didn't see that coming. And you know what? Storms, they come to everyone. And I know that there's some of you in here, and some of you have told me your storm. You're in a bad storm. And I'm so sorry that you're in it. I know that I can't fully understand everything that you're going through, but you're in a bad storm. Some of you, the waters are calm, but there's gonna be a storm that comes. And God is preparing us through his word and through this story that we're looking at today to help us overcome, because even in the midst of the worst storm, you can find peace and God can guide you through it. It doesn't mean that there won't be pain. Be honest with you, there's gonna be pain. But the amazing thing is that you know something greater than pain. You know the peace that comes from your loving Father, and he will help you through the storm if you allow him to. I think everybody struggles. Everybody does. And part of the beauty of the church, this is one of the things I love about the church, is that we get to help each other out. All right, so you got someone next to you who might be going through a storm. You might not even know about it. But here's the amazing thing about the church. We get to connect together and help each other up out through the storms. All right, this requires 3 really important things to happen, okay? So you need to hear this for us to be a healthy church, for us to be a body that really comes alongside of each other in storms. There's 3 things that have to happen, but we get to help each other through storms. This is the part of the beauty and the amazing part of being a part of a church. Think about this, that we cannot look down on each other when we go through storms. When other people are struggling, we cannot judge. If you judge others, because maybe sometimes storms happen because of our own doing, that's not always true, of course, but we can't judge each other. We can't look down on each other. We can't evaluate and well, this person, it's because we just have to love people to Jesus. Okay, our job is not to be the judge and jury. Our job is to love people. And we have to create an environment where we don't judge each other. That has to be the foundation where we love others to Jesus. And then I think the second thing is this: we have to be honest when we're down. When we're in a storm, if you don't share your storm with someone, how are they gonna pray with you? How are they gonna encourage you? Sometimes people don't share because the first thing doesn't happen, because there's not a culture of love. And even when people are going through storms, or they make bad decisions, or they fail, like we put them down or put them in their place and all that kind of stuff that happens in the human relation. It's like we need to lift each other up. And when that environment is there, then you should be free to be vulnerable and share. So that has to happen. And then number 3 is that we have to make the effort and get involved to lift each other up when we see someone down. Because if you hear about someone's storm and you do nothing and you just walk away, then you miss a great opportunity to reach out a hand to someone in the storm. So we have to provide an environment where people know that they're loved and not judged. We have to be vulnerable enough to share with each other our storms. Okay, if you think that you have to have a facade that everything's good all the time, or that things are perfect, or that you're better than, like, just let that go, because we know we all go through storms. We know we all have sinned. We know that we all have a past. We know that we make mistakes. We gotta let go of that and share our storms, so then we can get involved and help lift each other. Does that make sense? I mean, I think that's how the way it should be. You know, one of the cool things we get to do as a church is help people in their storms. I mean, I've seen this so many times here already in this new church. I mean, it's people helping each other and just the cool things we've done together. It's been amazing. And next Sunday, we get to do it again. Another amazing thing. I just love that there's always something that we're like doing and helping. And next Sunday, we're gonna do this. It's only the second time we've ever done it. We did this last year. We're going to give you, on your way out today, a bag. And what we're going to do is we're gonna ask you to go home and fill this with food. And you may decide to take a couple bags or fill your own bags or a box, but we're just saying if everybody could do something, not everyone can do a lot, and you don't need to do a lot, but if all of us did something, just think about the impact of that. Like everybody in this service, everybody in the next service, we all came back and we brought a bag of food. Just clear out your pantry, the extra stuff. You're like, oh, I got a few of these, I don't need all. Or when you go shopping this week, you go grocery shopping, you're at Walmart or Publix or wherever you shop, and just grab a few extra things. Because there's people that are going through storms right now in our community. And maybe they lost a job and they've been without a job for a while. Or maybe they're struggling and maybe they don't have what they need. You know, we refer people all the time if they need food or they're struggling. We try to help them when we can, and we say, hey, and also we put this community resource guide together. If you know someone that's in need of it, let us know. There's an email right there on your weekly. And let us know. And we give this to people all the time, and it's got a list of different food pantries in the community, different services, community resources to help them. I think it's been really helpful to a lot of people. And we want to help them help people because they do that well, and they make sure it's a need and all these things. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna all bring food, and we're gonna help people that are going through storms. And you can do that. You can do something. Like just bring something, and it doesn't matter. Bring a box of cereal. It doesn't, like, bring a few cans of food. But if we all do something, we can help people who are going through storms. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. The church should be the light in the darkness in the community, because when you're in a storm, it's dark, right? I mean, it's super dark. I mean, you remember being afraid of the dark as a child? You remember that? You're like, Mom and Dad, can you crack the door? Can you like give a little night light up in here? It's like, it's the dark. And when you're in a storm, it's so dark. And we get to be light to people. Something simple like providing provision or food, or like so many other things that we've done in the past. Helping people by accomplishing God's agenda and being light in the world. That's what we're supposed to be about. Let's go back to this story in Acts chapter 4. These followers of Jesus, they find themselves in a storm. They've been thrown in jail for doing something good, but progress is being made. The new church is going forward. Lives are being changed, but they still find themselves in a storm. Verse 5. The next day, the rulers, the elders, and the teachers of the law, they met in Jerusalem. Annas, the high priest, was there, and so was Caiaphas, John, Alexander, and others of the high priest's family. They had Peter and John brought before them, and they began to question them. By what power or what name did you do this? Then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said to them, rulers and elders of the people, if we are being called to account today for an act of kindness shown to a man who was lame, they healed this guy supernaturally, God had given him the ability to do that, and being asked how he was healed, then know this, you and all the people of Israel, it is by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom you crucified, but whom God raised from the dead, that this man stands before you healed. This man, and there was like an actual man who had been healed that they knew who had been lame, and he had now walked him. Just amazing. Jesus is the stone you builders rejected, which has become the cornerstone. So Jesus is the cornerstone. Salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. Wow. So in this storm, I see much more faith. You remember the first storm, the boats, being overwhelmed by waves? We're gonna die, oh no, help us, Jesus. Like now in this storm, right? I mean, they're thrown in jail. But the very group of people that led to Jesus' death, they execute him. So they really could be facing their death at this point. They're apprehended, incarcerated, and they're standing before these people. And he says, you know that guy that you crucified? It's in his name that we're doing all these amazing things. And it's like, that's such faith and boldness and audacity for the kingdom and for God. And there's no fear there. There's love, there's faith in it, and it's changed. And in your notes, I would say this, I'd say that biblical convictions give us stability in the storm. Biblical convictions, when you know the word of God. Listen, this is so important. Knowing God's word and his truth is critical in storms. It gives you something solid to stand on when everything around you is shifting. Because when you're in a storm, everything is shifting, everything is moving, everything is changing. But once you're in the storm, listen, it's too late. It's often too late to go back and try to find out what the truth is, because when you're in a storm, everything is crazy and panicked, and you need to know God's word. And if you don't know the truth, if you don't know God's word, which is going to give you stability to stand on in the storm when things are shifting, if you don't know God's truth, the devil, your adversary, who is also called the father of lies, he's going to feed you his version of the truth, his false version of the truth while you're in the storm. Because while you're in a storm and while you're sinking, what do? You grab onto anything, right? And so you're going to grab onto anything while you're in the storm. And so that means that pain, while you're going through pain in the storm, can actually prolong the storm, because you end up grabbing onto things that don't help you when you're in the storm. Have you ever done that? You're struggling. I'm just going to try this, and that made it worse. I'm going to go do this. I'm just going to run to this. And knowing God's word gives you stability. When you don't know it, then the devil's going to feed you his false version. We need to know truth. And I think we all relearn the difference between truth and a lie every year this month in April, because we get April fooled again by the same people, a lot of times with the same pranks. And we fall for it every year. Check out this prank. I think it's pretty awesome.
Hey guys, today we got Sam Pepper with us. We're gonna see how people react when there's a snake chasing them. Ooh. Whoa, there's a snake. Ooh, ooh. Ooh. Watch out, watch out, watch out! It's chasing you! Right behind you!
That's so wrong and so good, right? I mean, but probably one of the best pranks I've ever heard of. There's a teacher, right, his professor, and he's got some students in his class, and sometimes their phones would go off. So he makes this rule, true story, he makes this rule. He says, if your phone rings during my class, you put it on speaker and you answer it in front of all of us. And the person calling you doesn't know it's on speaker. And so that's his rule in the class. So the students got together and they decided to use this to their advantage. Have a little fun, check it out.
Answer it.
Hello? Yes?
Okay, you might want to
Okay,
shut that down.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll call back later. Thank you.
Hey, I want to publicly apologize.
That That's okay.
I'm very sorry.
I've been expecting this, and
Okay.
I already know what I'm going to name the baby. The first name will be April, and the middle name will be Fools.
Bonus points. That was awesome.
Oh, wow. Man, that's awesome. They got him so good. You know, the challenge in pranks show us this so clearly is that sometimes it's hard to discern, right? It's hard to discern the difference between truth and reality and then fiction and falsehood. It's hard to know the difference sometimes. That is why it's so important that you know God's word, that you know truth in your life, that you have a solid foundation. Otherwise, you will buy into every passing whim and opinion and cultural philosophy that sweeps through. You'll get hooked on so many things that will pull you off track, that'll pull you deeper into storms in your life. You need to know truth. You need to know God's word that gives you strength and stability in the storms. I think probably the greatest danger for us in storms is when our minds are not built on truth and when the lies come. And I think probably the thing that sinks us more often than the storms is what happens in our mind. You know, I was kind of thinking about that for us, and I was thinking, you know, I think discouragement sometimes comes, and that can sink us, right? And discouragement's not the storm. That's something that happens in us about the storm. So discouragement comes. Sometimes we give up hope. We quit. We run. We hide when the storms come. That's something that happens inside us. That's not the storm. Doubts come, right? Doubts come along with the discouragement. Anger might come, or revenge, you know, becoming cold, numb, bitter, resentful, all these things that can happen in us, in our minds, when our minds are not focused on truth, right? I mean, when the lies that come in, so we give up hope, or we doubt, we question, we get discouraged. Find stability in the storm through God's word, through his truth, and don't give up hope. You need to know that the best is always yet to come. For believers in Jesus, this is absolutely certain. Our hope is in Jesus. It's not the things of this world. And so we have hope. Even if you're in the midst of the worst storm ever and you're like, man, my ship is sinking. And even if it does, you still have hope because Jesus has overcome, right? And so when the end of this world, I mean, you have paradise to look forward to. You have a promise in Jesus. You have hope that you know that things will be restored. You know that in the end, right will win and that God will triumph in your life. And so you can know that the best is yet to come. Sometimes, though, we do need to get hopeless. Now, I heard that first from a book I was reading by Dr. Henry Cloud. And, you know, reading this, when I first read it, I'm like, I don't think I believe that. Because we're always supposed to have hope, right? And he said, and he explained it in his book, he said, no, actually, sometimes you do need to get hopeless about a specific situation ever becoming good and changing on its own. And he used an example. He was counseling a woman one time, and she'd been married, and they were still married, but it was a horrible marriage. The man was a long-term alcoholic. And so all the devastation that had reaped in their life because of his alcoholism, he counseled her and he said, ma'am, you need to become hopeless about your marriage ever being good in this situation. He said, don't run to divorce. I'm not saying give up on marriage. The concept of marriage works and it's great and it's amazing. So don't give up on marriage. Don't give up hope on that. And don't give up hope on this guy. He's a good guy, and under the surface of the alcoholism, he could be a great husband. And don't give up on you, the chemistry of you guys working together, because you guys have had love and you have it and you can have love. And that's a choice. It's not always a feeling. Like, you guys can do it. And that's what a lot of people do is they give up on something that could be great, and because they blame the circumstances, well, it's them, or they blame, you know, well, we're not in love, we never had it, you know, maybe it's just us, and or maybe this can never work, and they give up hope. And he said, don't give up on hope, those things. But he says, give up hope on this becoming a good marriage like this. You need to get to the point where you're hopeless about it changing in the way it is. And you need to get desperate, which will cause you to actually make a change. And he did, and he wrote about this in his book, and he counseled her, and he says, so what you need to do is you need to make a plan and make a change. And so she did. She, through the help of some good trusted friends, they did intervention, did some rehab. He got accountability tied to some consequences, and he actually changed, and their marriage was changed. It's an amazing story. I'm like, that's awesome. But it took becoming hopeless about that situation ever becoming what it could be without the change. Not giving up on marriage, not giving up on the relationship, but becoming desperate. And he also went on to write about the difference between hoping and wishing. Man, I thought this was so good for us. Because, I don't know about you, but I run into people all the time who are just wishing for things to change or wishing for things to be better, right? We've all done this. The difference between wishing and hoping is when you wish, it's not based on anything. It's not based on reality. There's no evidence. There's no supporting, it's just a wish. It's a desire. That's it. It's a belief. It's a desire. That's it. But we have something better than a wish. We have hope. So my hope in Jesus is not a blind hope. I have solid faith in him, but it's still faith. But under that, there's a solid hope. See, my hope in the afterlife, that when I die, that's not the end, that I'll be raised from the dead. My hope is in something solid. My Savior, Jesus, different than all the, I don't know if Jesus would even call himself a religious leader, but all the other religious leaders of the world, you can go find where they're buried. Go find, there's their tombstone, and people make sacrifices, do stuff. It's like, okay, there's their thing they started, and they're dead, and all right, and so they got something going. Jesus, you can't find his tomb. I mean, you can't find it filled with anything. You can find an empty tomb, but you won't find where he's buried. You won't find his bones. You can't dig him up, excavate him. Why? Because we know we just celebrated Easter. Jesus died, but he rose from the dead. So my hope is in something where there's something to believe in. I have hope based on the fact that my leader, my Lord Jesus, my Savior, rose from the dead. I believe I'm going. You meet people all the time that say, well, there's a God up there. I believe, when I die, I'm sure something will happen. We'll go to a better place. That's a wish. The hope that when you die that you'll just generically go to a better place, whatever that is, and whoever created it, and that you just can kind of go. It doesn't matter how you lived your life, for good or bad. You just go. That's a wish. That's not based on hope and reality or any other. That's a wish. That's different than hope. That's solid. That's a big risk, and I kind of want to say to people, that's forever. That's your eternity. That's a lot. So you're wishing for a lot. That's the risk. But my hope is solid. It's in someone. It's in Jesus. And in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 19, it says we have this hope as an anchor for our soul, firm and secure. Our hope is secure. It's in something. And that's what an anchor does in the storm. An anchor keeps the boat from being thrown up against the rocks and being shattered. And you have a solid hope. You have a hope that's in someone. It's in Jesus. And you have reason for that hope. It's not a generic wish. It's a hope that's solid. You have reason to believe, and we trust in him. And these followers of Jesus were in a storm, but something had changed in them. And so they had conviction and courage in the storm. The response is very interesting, and probably one of my favorite verses in this whole story. The response of the religious leaders, it says, when they saw the courage, of Peter and John, and they realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men. So these guys, these religious leaders, the Pharisees, they were trained, and they got their robes and their tassels and their rituals, and they are legit religious dudes, right? Well, Peter and John, these guys, they come from the caliber of ordinary folks, like a lot of us. They're fishermen. When Jesus recruited them, he didn't go to the Ivy League schools and be like, hey, you go top of your class, you come with me. All right, that's how we roll. It's like, he went, he got the fishermen, he got the ordinary people, the people that didn't make it to be Pharisees. He got these guys, he rounded them up and said, hey, let's go change the world, right? And so they noticed that, the religious people, they noticed that these guys, they have such conviction, they have such passion, their lives have been changed, they're changing others' lives. What's going on? They're ordinary, unschooled men. And it says that they realized, verse 13, says that when they realized that, they were astonished, and they took note that these men had been with Jesus. That's the difference maker. That's the difference maker in a storm, and that's the difference maker in our lives. In your notes, time with Jesus. That's the lesson. Time with Jesus gives us courage in the storm. That's what changes everything. So a simple question is this: if time with Jesus is what gives us strength and stability and courage in the storm, are you meeting with God? Are you meeting with God every single day? This is it. You can't miss this. This is the thing that will change your life like nothing else, supernaturally. The greatest get to in your life is companionship with your Father in heaven. That's it. And God is everything that you need, and he's everything that you want. At the core of it, he's it. In fact, E. Stanley Jones says, anything less than God will let you down. Our hope is in him, and you get to chase him, pursue him, and be in relationship with him. That's it. That's the most important thing. And our relationship with God, that's the game changer in the storms. He's everything you need. Are you meeting with him? Are you investing time in his word? Are you meeting with God every day? That's the anchor for us. There's so many ways to do it. You can get creative. I'm so thankful that I was raised in a godly home. And so I think it was around my teenage years, I started reading the Bible. on a regular basis, and it changed my life so much. And that's why I love raising up the next generation and our kid experience and student experience, like the younger generation, seeing their lives change. Hopefully keep them from a lot of decisions a lot of us in the room have made and see their life be redirected early on. I mean, that's awesome. And thankfully I was raised in a godly home, and man, I started reading the Bible, it changed me. But you know what? I think a lot of people, they don't ever have that change because they don't ever invest that time with God. They don't meet with God. And a lot of people don't do it because they think it has to be a certain way. You have to sit with hands folded at a desk and, it's like, that doesn't have to be like that. There's so much room for variety and creativity and your personality to be injected into that, and out in a nature walk with God, or sitting at the beach in a sunset connected with God, reading the Bible, strumming a guitar and singing to God. I mean, while you're driving down the road, listening to worship music, pulling up a Bible app on your phone and reading it, listening to it, journaling. I mean, there's so many ways, but you need to connect with God and find a way to do it. Listen, we make every other appointment in our life around things that matter. We make appointments around the things that matter. I remember when I was 16 years old, I was so excited to get my driver's license. And there's a lot of reasons, but probably one of the reasons I was most excited to get my driver's license is because it meant I could actually go on a date now without mom and dad, of course. So I could actually go out and I could go on a date. And there was this girl, Wendy. I had a huge crush on her. She's so cute. She's like a year or two older than me, and she's like a junior, senior. I'm a sophomore, and I got my license. I'm like, I'm gonna ask her out. I mean, I can literally show you back. I had a little thing. I wrote out some prayer requests when I was in high school, and I literally can show you, like, pray to marry Wendy. I was in love, and thank God that you did not answer that prayer request. Worked out so much better for me with Jennifer. But so I thought I was in love, and so I asked her out, and I'm sure it was a really lame version of this, like, hey, to Wendy, I was wondering, I got a car now. I was thinking maybe, hey, would you like to go out with me? It's like that kind of thing. And she said yes, and I was like, yes, that's so good. I won the lottery or something. I was so excited. I picked this place called J.J. Finnegan's for the chicken fingers because I thought even if it's a bad day, it's going to be a good meal, and I'm so good with that. So I was really excited. I show up at her house, and I'm nervous. Do you remember you remember that? I was so nervous inside. I'm clenching the steering wheel of the car, and I'm trying to have conversation, 16-year-old new driver, and I'm trying to have conversation while I'm talking to her while I'm driving at the same time. Don't let your kids drive new and date. I mean, wait till they're 18, 20. For me, it's 30. That's my plan. Wait till wait later. But I'm trying to drive and talk to her at the same time. And literally, I get to a stoplight, a red light, and I think I stopped, but then I just drove right through it. I was so nervous. She's like, you just ran a red light. I'm like, I'm so sorry. He's like, I was just so nervous, right? But so here's the thing. We make appointments for things that matter. Friday night at 7, the date, Friday night at 7. A business meeting, Tuesday, 12 o'clock. Hey, our family's gonna get together next Wednesday, right? 6 p.m. Hey, I have the plumber coming Monday at 8 a.m., right? Yeah, Wednesday, we got to get the car into the shop, otherwise it won't run. We make appointments. In fact, we plan about everything that matters. You plan your finances because they matter. How much money's coming in and going out? It's called a budget. I mean, you plan things that matter. Your work schedule, when do you got to be there? When do you have to punch in? We plan things that matter. Why do we not plan to meet with God? It's one of the most important, it is the most important thing in our life. Why do we not play? We just wait. My mentor, Pastor Kevin Myers, we share this at First Class when we're coaching people in this. We said, waiting for God to catch you is spiritually lazy. It's our job to chase God. And if you don't put it on the calendar, if you don't prioritize, it's not gonna happen. You just try, you leave, I'm excited, I need to do that. I know it's something I need to do. I should try to do that. It's trying and training are two different things. You'll never do it if you don't plan to do it. Just like you would anything else that's important in your life. This is the most important thing that'll change you forever. We coach people to pick a time, a place, and a plan. What's it gonna be for you? I'm gonna go back to this story one more time. In Acts chapter 4, verse 23, the believers are released. They're threatened. They tell them not to speak about Jesus anymore, and they respond and they say, well, you judge for yourself whether it's right to obey God man rather than God, but we're gonna keep doing it. So they're like, well, don't do it. And they let him go, and they couldn't do anything really because there was a man standing there that was healed, and they knew he once was not healed, now he was healed. And so they couldn't deny that, and the crowd was behind it. People were believing, so they warned them, they let them go, and they're released. Verse 23, on their release, Peter and John went back to their own people and reported all that the chief priests and the elders had said to them. When they heard this, they raised their voices together in prayer to God. Sovereign Lord, they said, you made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in them. And they go on and it records for us some of their prayer. It's amazing. And then down to verse 31, it says, after they prayed, the place where they were meeting was shaken, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, and they spoke the word of God boldly. They spoke the word of God boldly. in your notes, they gathered and they prayed in the storm. That's what we do when there's a storm. We gather with other believers. We call them up. We gather with them. I love that our life groups are meeting this week. People are gathering together. They make connections. It's how they get to know each other. And then when the storms come, they can lock arms and like not sink because others are pulling them up. I mean, I just love that. That's what the church does. Like we gather and we pray together. And we pray individually. We pray together. We pray. That's what we do. It's a part of who we are. And what I noticed in these believers, when they face a storm, they prayed. I was telling you about my mentor, PK, Pastor Kevin Myers of 12 Stone. And it's an amazing church in Atlanta, and I spent some time serving there, and they sent us out and helped us get started and all that. And if you've been with us for some time, you've heard him teach sometimes here before, and it's a huge impact on my life as a mentor and a friend. And I learned a lot of how to pray from him. And one of the ways that he prays, and it sounds crazy, but he actually has a sword. And he'll hold a sword in his hand when he prays. And I've never seen him do it. I've heard him talk about it. And I know that like a lot of the leaders of the church have a sword hanging on their wall. And it's like, this cool thing. And like, okay, what's going on? And I ask a little bit about it. And I don't know if but I know he like walks around the auditorium of their church and he prays. And why would he do that? He does it because he sees, it's not like a religious, ritualistic thing for him. It's a reminder that when he's praying for the church, it's a spiritual battle. That there's an enemy that's trying to stop us from accomplishing God's agenda in the world and seeing people's lives change. Is an enemy in your life. And so when he prays, he fights. He's taking ground spiritually. He's battling in prayer. And I just thought, man, that's awesome. It changed the way I looked at prayer. It's not some trite ritualistic thing that you do. I mean, it's like you're battling for God in prayer. And you know what? He took one of his prayer swords. He's got a number. I don't know how many he has. I've seen his gun collection, but I don't know like how many he is. But he gave me a sword when we moved down here to start the church. We left 12 Stone, and he said, Brandon, take this. He's like, keep it for a year, and then I want it back. And we moved down here January 2014, launched the church last year in January 2015. And in that year, I had the sword, and it changed how I prayed. And it reminded me so much of what like you see in the Bible, what prayer is, this spiritual battle. And so it was kind of cool. And my birthday this last December was December 4. We were here on Friday night for our first night of worship, if you were with us. And it was an incredible night. The services came together, and we had this amazing night of worship. Well, beforehand, a lot of the leaders got together. And they said, hey, Brandon, we know you were sad about giving PK's prayer sword back to him. And they said, so we got you something. And so I think it was Kevin and Marlon, a couple close friends, a couple of the guys, leaders, they brought out something. They said, hey, this is on behalf of all of us. And we got you a sword. And so I'm like, man, that's so much better than birthday cake. Like, that's awesome. And I knew exactly what this represented for me and what they knew it meant for me, is that it meant prayer. And I want you guys to know that I pray for you every single week. I battle in prayer for you. I pray for my family and my friends. I pray for this church. I pray for you. I pray for this community. And I battle in prayer because I believe that mountains are moved through prayer, that God changes things through prayer. Are you praying, and if you're not, who is, for your family? Are you praying for God's work in your life, the things that you're trying to change? Are you battling in prayer? Because that's where things shift. That's where things change. It's a spiritual battle that wins out. We talked about that last week. In the storm that you're in, are you praying? Are you asking God to bring victory? Because that's where the victory is won. It's through prayer. It's through meeting with God, and it's through time with him. And that's what changed Peter and John. In James 4:8 says, come near to God and he will come near to you. It's in meeting with him that our lives are forever changed. My kids, probably every single one of them to a kid, when they're young, we play hide and seek. And you would expect a kid, you say hide, they go hide under a bed or in a closet. Well, young kids, what they do, you probably did this when you were a kid, when you hide from an adult, you put your hands over your face like this. Because if an adult, is there and you cover your eyes, of course they can't see you, right? It's like, because you can't see them, they can't see you. And every kid knows this. I mean, you need to know this if you don't know. They can't see you. And so I love to go like pry the fingers, apart from one of my little kids, they're peeking out and then they close their fingers. It's like they disappeared or something. I don't know, I go with it. But they think that you can't see them. And here's the thing, I think when we're in the dark, when we're in the storm, we think, well, God can't see. I'm all alone. And the amazing thing about light is it always overcomes the darkness. every single time. Light overcomes the darkness. You open the door into a dark room and light wins out. You turn on the switch, light wins out. It always wins out. And God is light in this world, and he wants us to be light, like a city on a hill that can't be hidden. And he says, go into the darkness and be light. And he's the light that sees what's going on in your darkness, in your storm, when you're at the bottom, when you're in the valley, walking through the valley of the shadow of death. We will fear no evil because he is with us. He guides us through it. You know, he's our shepherd. He lovingly directs us through the storm. He's with you in the storm, no matter what you have going on. So they prayed in the storm, but they also gathered in the storm. You know, I think that attending weekly a biblical Christian church and be a part of a gathering of believers is so important in every believer's life. They've done it from the very beginning time in the early church. We will always be doing it. We'll be doing it in heaven, gathering, worshiping God together, collective. It's so important. It's an important discipline, an important part of our lives. I said this same sentence that I'm gonna say last week, but I'm saying it again because I'm sure that throughout the day today that there were some here that were not here last week, which emphasizes the point exactly, is that you can't just be committed to the things that are important, like being a part of a church when you feel like it, because you'll miss some of the most important moments. You can't just be a good parent when you feel like it, when it's convenient. You can't be a good husband or wife when you feel like it, when it's convenient. You can't just work harder, be a good employee when you feel like it. I mean, you can't show up at work when you feel like it. Being a part of a church, this was most important in our lives, honoring God and being a part of his kingdom and all that. Like, that is so important. And if you just show up when you feel like it, you're gonna miss some of the days that God really wants to work in your life. He does. He wants to work in your life. He's for you, and he's with you. And you know, if the kids are not behaving, or you're in a disagreement with whoever you come with, or you got a big shopping list to do, or a test on Friday, or a big work project, and you don't come on those days, you're missing the opportunities to come when God really wants to make an impact in your life. Here's the point. Let me say this about any area of life. What it takes to keep you from your discipline says a lot about how committed you really are to it. So fight to be here, fight to connect with God, fight to meet with him daily. Make the decision at this age in your life, cement it now so that you don't miss more years going into the future. And so that question on the bottom of your notes is, now what? Now what? What is it that you need to do? And only you can answer that question as you pray and as you get with God. And you might need to go here and leave and get with him. But I want to leave you with this verse. It's from John chapter 16, verse 33. It's Jesus' own words. He says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You know, storms bring panic, storms bring pain, but something greater than that is peace that Jesus offers. And he says, in the midst of the trouble, you know, you're gonna have trouble, but he says, you will have peace. Because in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have what? I have overcome the world. Jesus has overcome. And so whatever storm you're in, listen, some of you, I know you came in here today, and we're gonna pray for you in a moment, but you come in here today and you're going through a storm. It's crazy. You're sinking. There's hope, and Jesus can deliver peace even in your pain because he has overcome. And he says, you're gonna have trouble. Don't be surprised. Storms don't show favoritism, but here's the thing. I have overcome this world. You take my hand. I have overcome. Storms are messy, they're crazy. I wanna pray for you, but first, you may not have heard of this guy named Joseph M.W. Turner. He lived from the late 1700s to 1851. He was an amazing English painter and lived a crazy life and all kinds of stuff. Read a little bit about him and a little bit eccentric towards the end. And he's in his mid-60s. He paints this incredible painting now that's worth probably millions. It's on display in London. It's a painting about a storm, a ship that's in a snowstorm, and it's crazy. And some believe that this was just a myth, that it didn't actually happen. And there's a little bit of banter about whether it happened or not, but it's said that he in order to paint this picture and paint it so well, that he strapped himself onto the mast of a ship for 4 hours that was actually in a snowstorm. He didn't think he was gonna make it. In fact, he says he didn't expect to survive, but he had more than endured. He had triumphed, and the painting is one of his finest achievements. And just the thought of someone, whether it happened or not, being on the mast of a ship, strapped in to experience the storm, to survive the storm, and then he does, and he paints it, and just the vividness of which he can see it and paint it because he survived it, and you can kind of see in the painting just the swirling and the craziness and all the stuff around him. You know, and that's what the storms are like, right? I mean, it's everything is chaotic. But the light, the lighthouse, the light at the end of the darkness, the hope in our lives is Jesus Christ. And I want to challenge you that whatever storm you're going through, don't put your eyes on the fear. put your eyes on faith in Jesus, and you will get through this storm. Better things are to come. Don't give up. Don't let the devil lie to you. Hold on to the anchor, the thing that will keep you strong in the storm, and that's Jesus Christ. Let him be your strength. Let him be your stability and your support. Let him guide you through this storm, and he will overcome. Right on?
We hope you got a lot out of today's teaching and can begin to apply what you learned to help you in your everyday life. Remember, if you would like to learn more about Church Experience, get connected, or begin to give financially, just check out the link below. Thank you again for stopping by, and we hope to see you in person soon.